double entry bookkeeping system. Yes, without books of accounts, we cannot keep our financial information with us. So in this module, we would be learning about different types of books of accounts. The thing is that when we say books of accounts, it is presumed that these would be real or tangible books of accounts. But the era in which we are into, it is a computerized era where financial statements are also kept on the computer through a system. But remember one thing, either we are maintaining physical books of accounts or we are maintaining our financial information through a computerized software. In both cases, the structure of the books of accounts would remain same. So either we are having computerized bookkeeping system with us or manual bookkeeping system with us. We need books of accounts which are basically of two types. One is books of original entries and the second one is the books of secondary entries. This is in fact a diagram which will tell us that how many books of accounts and what do we do with each type of book of account. This is what we discussed, that there is a book of original entries, which is also known as book of primary entry, or a journal. And the second book is the book of secondary entries, which is also known as ledger. So journal and ledger, you can say that one type of book of account is known as journal and the second type of book of account is known as ledger. We will discuss journal first. Journal is the book of original entry, which is also known as book of primary entries. Journal is the first book of account in which financial information are recorded. Broadly speaking, we segregate journal by the nature of transaction. So the cash transactions are recorded in a separate book system, whereas credit transaction, or you can say non-cash transactions, are recorded in separate system. So broadly, you see that there is a system of bookkeeping in which we record only cash transactions, and there is a system of bookkeeping in which we record non-cash or credit transactions. Well, this section covers main cash book and petty cash book. We will learn in detail that what is recorded in main cash book and what type of payments are recorded in petty cash book. By the way, all cash receipts and all cash payments are recorded in the main cash and petty cash book. Well, this is what we have discussed in our earlier module, that its source document is cash memo or cash receipt. Okay, so this is one type of books of accounts, which are the books of original entry. You can also call it as cash journal or cash register. Well, next comes ledger, which is in fact the secondary level book of account. Remember, the book of original entry where transactions are originally recorded is known as journal, and the book in which transactions are recorded after recording into the journal is known as ledger. we know very well that there are three sources of financial information. One is transaction. So cash transaction has been treated in cash book. Credit transaction will be treated over here, and events and conditions. So these are the three, in fact, sources of financial information: transaction, events, and condition. Well, the subdivision of journal for credit transactions is purchase journal, sales return journal, and purchase return journal. All these 1, 2, 3, and 4, all these 4 books are prepared for credit transactions only. A detailed discussion would be undertaken in the upcoming modules, but for this module, just keep in your mind that if there is a cash transaction or goods purchased for cash, those will be treated over here in main cash book. But if there are credit transactions, credit purchases would be treated over here. Credit sales would be treated over here. Okay? And obviously, these returns, sales returns, were in fact credit sales, and these purchases returns were in fact credit purchases. Okay. So rest of the events and conditions would be recorded in the general journal. Okay. Purchases information is taken from invoices received. Sales information is taken from invoices issued. Returns inward or sales return information is taken from credit note issued. And returns outwards or purchases return information is taken from credit notes received. Well, and the source document for events and conditions will depend upon the nature of the events and conditions. So all these are in fact journal. So we have discussed journal right now, and now we will be discussing the ledger. So it's done. As such, we have discussed journal. Okay. Now comes ledger, the book of secondary entry. In this book of secondary entry, we prepare, if you just follow this line, let me make it red for you. Yes, this is the track that we are following now. Books of secondary entries, the ledger. Ledger is divided into two: main ledger and subsidiary ledger. The main ledger is also known as nominal ledger or general ledger, whereas subsidiary ledger is the ledger that is maintained for memorandum. And main ledger or nominal ledger or general ledger is in fact the book where we keep record of headwise summaries of each accounting head, and each summary produces a balance which is then placed in trial balance, and from this trial balance we prepare financial statements. If you do recall, this is what we discussed in accounting cycle as well. So all these are the books of accounts. Basically, the journal, which is split into two, for cash and for credit transactions and for other events and conditions. And then the second book is ledger, which is in fact further split into two: main ledger and subsidiary ledger. Main ledger is maintained for keeping summaries and extracting balances, whereas summary ledger is maintained for memorandum purposes only, in which we maintain memorandum for sales, in a way for accounts receivables, which is known as sales ledger. We maintain memorandum for accounts payable or creditors, which is known as bought ledger or purchase ledger. We may maintain a memorandum for different types of material, and for any reason for which we need to keep some memorandum with us because of the size of transactions, we maintain those memorandum under subsidiary ledger system. Important tips to remember in this module are: separate journals are maintained for cash and non-cash transactions, and balances of subsidiary ledgers are not shown in financial statements. These are just kept as memorandum. So thank you very much for being attentive in this module.